Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
I hope that your day is going well, and I hope that you're feeling strong and black today. My heart goes out. I want to give a shout out and an RIP to my brother George Floyd. George Floyd was killed by Minnesota police this week, and it was a real tragic, real sickening situation to watch. Just, something that is absolutely positively the worst scenario I've seen, I would say, since Rodney King, but I actually think it's worse than Rodney King, because Rodney King lived and George died, and we had to sit there and watch this long video where this man named Derek Chauvin, cop Derek Chauvin, was sitting on his neck, and it's I don't know what to say. So what I wanted to do was, you guys know I'm interested in facts and information, things like that, that we need as we move forward to seek out prosecution, hopefully, not just incarceration and prosecution, but a death penalty, for this man. I researched this. I wanted to know his name. I feel that, when you look at that video and you look at his face and you see that he had that, that I don't give a, whatever type look on his face. I mean, almost no concern whatsoever. It was almost, it was a powerful moment that can only lead you to reflect as a black person, to say, what's going through a cop's mind for him to know that he's being recorded, know that the person whose knee he has on his neck is dying, which I don't know who the hell thinks that that's a normal police tactic. I'm curious to see where in your training manual are they teaching cops that it's okay to put a knee in somebody's neck. A knee should not be in a neck. It was just unbelievable to watch. I mean, no hesitation, no nothing, did not give a shit, nothing. And so I said, you know what? We need to find out who he is. I need his name to be released. We need to find out where he's at. And whatever the consequences are, that's just what they're going to be. I don't think that any person should be allowed to do something like that to another person and have a single relative who feels safe anymore. I don't feel, like you should, like, I know if I did something like that to somebody who's part of a community that cares about him, I wouldn't expect any of my relatives to feel safe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through. I did a little research on this guy, and you can do with it as you wish. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, because I'd like for everybody to kind of hear this information. So I did some research on Derek Chauvin. And so what I'm going to do is kind of read through some of this in terms of who he is and stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I want to mention for sure is that there was a picture of him wearing a Make Whites Great Again hat. That picture is not accurate. That's not him in that picture. That's another guy. Snopes identified the name of the person, or whatever. But still, he doesn't need to wear a hat like that for you to know that he has a problem. I don't know if it's race or what, but this man is clearly sick. So they said the officer at the center of George Floyd's death has been identified as Derek Chauvin, a 44-year-old, 19-year veteran with the Minneapolis Police Department. The office of lawyer Tom Kelly confirmed that it is representing Chauvin, who has been identified as the officer who had his knee placed on the neck of Floyd, who later died at Hennepin County Medical Center on Monday evening. Kelly represented Geronimo Yanez, another officer who was acquitted in the 2016 killing of Philando Castile. So you got these cops killing people and thinking that's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. Chickens will come home to roost. There will be a consequence to pay. I don't think the community is interested in sitting around and letting this happen anymore. I think that you're seeing a point of inflection in terms of, what young people especially are just willing to tolerate. Now, Chauvin was fired on Tuesday. Also, here's what we know about the officer. He was involved in 3 officer-involved shootings, that of Wayne Reyes in 2006, Ira Latrell Tolez in 2008, and Leroy Martinez in 2011. I know that Latrell Tolez and Leroy Martinez are both black or brown. I don't know about Wayne Reyes. In the 2000 incident, they said he was one of 6 officers that fired a weapon at Reyes. They claimed that he pointed a sawed-off shotgun at the officers. Now, the thing about it, though, is that there's no credibility, in that. When the officers come back and tell a story, what reason do you have to believe any of that? Because remember, with the George Floyd situation, they told a whole different story before they knew the video was out there. There was a whole different story. I mean, they literally wrote up a fairy tale that, the officers noticed he was in medical distress and they got him medical help when he was in medical distress. Nobody mentions in the report, from what I understand, that the officers were the reason he was in medical distress. They were just sort of in this whole, he was in medical distress, so we went to get him help, and that's what we did. And so what I want you to also see is not just the tragedy of the incident, but the big picture in this thing. The big picture in this thing is that, they do most of their dirt when the cameras are not on. They do most of their dirt behind closed doors. They do most of their dirt in situations where it's he said, she said. Cops been doing this for 100 years. Imagine if they're doing this in 2020, when they know people have cameras in their cell phones. What do you think they were doing in 1984? What do you, at the height of the crack era? What do you think they were doing in the 90s and in the 70s, right? And what this really says is that any politician, for example, that wants to be taken seriously has to really talk about what it means to really ridiculously overhaul this whole criminal justice system. I mean, just even basic things like, for example, did you know that 94% of the police officers in Minneapolis don't even live in Minneapolis? Did you know that? 94% of the cops that work in that city don't even live in the city. How the fuck are you going to police a city that you don't even live in? How are you going to control something where you have no stake in the outcome? There's no consequences for you if you get out of pocket. You're impacting a community that in which you're not even a participant in that community. Well, you are an occupying force. You are soldiers there to occupy a community the same way people try to occupy villages in Iraq or Afghanistan. And so really, I hope that, in the middle of the tragedy, we'll also take a moment to reflect on this and just really ask ourselves. I mean, that was just a real moment of clarity for everybody to just kind of say, okay, wow, this cop sat there with his knee in the neck of a man who had not committed a violent crime. George Floyd did nothing violent. He was accused of doing something that was nonviolent. He was accused of something involving a check forgery, right? So this man decides to become judge, jury, and executioner of a man accused of committing a nonviolent act, but you're using violence just by the fact that your foot is on his neck. That is so fucking out of pocket. It's ridiculous. That is unbelievable. Like, you really, like, whatever your training manual says. And this man actually, by the way, he received a Medal of Valor when he shot the guy, a decade ago. I forgot what year it was. He received a Medal of Valor. So what I really kind of want you to pay attention to is that this man is a representation of a system. He's a manifestation of something bigger. He's a manifestation of not, and it's deeper. White supremacy clearly plays a part in it, right? Dr. Claude Anderson talks very clearly about how police forces began in the first place. They were there to control black people. He talks explicitly about why white folks have 99% of the guns and you got almost none of them, yet they're in your community talking about gun control. They're in your community talking about put the guns away. In fact, the brother George Floyd, he did a video. I put it up on my Twitter. I like George, by the way. I really do. He had a voice. He had something to say. He seemed like a good mentor for young brothers. I just feel like we really lost a real good black man in that situation. But one of the things that was interesting about George Floyd's commentary is that he too himself had been caught in the myth that the gun control needs to start in the black community. He was talking about young brothers getting rid of your guns and talking about busting guns, and that ain't cool. We need to stop this. And I get all that. I agree with him 100%. I mean, in the sense that we don't want brothers killing each other. I'm a believer that black on black crime is real, because I got friends that have been shot down, not by white guys, but by other brothers. So we got enemies right there in our midst. But deeper than that, though, I don't really think black people need fewer guns. I think we actually need more. I just do. I think that, at the end of the day, when you talk about arms control, when the U.S. government on down, the U.S. government, the local governments, and the police, when they talk about arms control and getting guns off the street, they're not talking about getting their guns off the street. They're talking about getting your guns off the street. They're trying to make sure you're disarmed, so that if they shoot you and kill you, there's no consequences for that. And so anyway, let me go back here. Let me see. I'm reading some of your comments. Boyce Alethea says, Boyce, mind you, the store who called in on him does more illegal business in that community. Wow, interesting. That's very interesting. I don't know much about the store. Paul D says he rocked back and forth on his neck. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what was going on with that. I really have to admit that I would actually love to talk to him. After I kicked him in his nuts and stepped on his neck, I'd like to just ask him what was happening here. What was the thought process behind what you were doing? Like, what made you think it's okay to have your knee on a man's neck and just look into the camera like, take my picture. I dare you. That's okay. I don't really care if you take my picture or not. Because here's the deal. I mean, give me a yes or no on this. I mean, do you think, yes or no, do you think that he would have felt comfortable doing that with a wealthy white man in a white neighborhood? Like, do you think that if he were dealing with a rich white guy, do you think he would have felt comfortable sitting there with his knee on the man's neck after he'd been accused of a nonviolent crime? Not convicted, no proof, no nothing, just accusations now. Like, yes or no, do you think he would have felt comfortable doing that? The answer is hell no. Hell no, you wouldn't have felt comfortable with that. Now let me read a little bit more. Hit the thumbs up button, please. Please hit the thumbs up button, and please subscribe if you haven't done it. Hit the notification bell. So basically, Chauvin, Derek Chauvin, this cop, his address is out there and everything. I don't even need to give it to you because it's out there. I don't want YouTube accusing me of terroristic threatening, but I'll just say that I wanted to know his name and I wanted to know more about him because I think that people need to know that, and I think people should do what they want with that information. It's so basically they're also saying that he was given a Medal of Valor in 2008 for an incident involving an armed man with a gun. In 2005, Chauvin and Officer Terry Nutter were involved in a car chase when the vehicle slammed into the car of two people who died. Twin Cities journalist Tony Webster reports that Chauvin received 2 letters of reprimand in 2007. So he was reprimanded twice in 2007 and orally reprimanded in 2003 on multiple occasions for allegations of using a demeaning tone and derogatory language. A further 7 complaints were made against him, with the cases closed with no action. So what I kind of want you all to really sort of make sure that we do is that as we deal with this, sort of as we respond and let the world know how we feel. Let me know if you guys can see me okay. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you can see me. As we let the world know how we feel about this, think about this on a bigger level. Think about this on a systematic level. Think about this in terms of understanding what you saw. You did not see one rogue cop who made a mistake and made a bad decision. That's not what you're seeing. What you're seeing is a man who is a manifestation of a system that decides that that's decided it's above the law. They have been extremely militarized, and they've also been trained to believe that killing a black person has no consequence. Right? You get what I'm saying? It's deeper than just let's go get this cop, let's make sure he pays, let's go deal with this issue or whatever, or this particular situation. It's about the entire system. It's about, how individuals are trained. How do you get trained to believe that it's okay to put a knee in a man's neck, right? How do you get trained to believe that it's okay to even do that, to dehumanize a person who's accused of a nonviolent crime? in the way that he was. I mean, the man was laid out. Think about this. This is a brother who was smart. He had a lot to say. He was, sharp looking dude, and you've got him laid out on the ground, begging for his life, crying in public, and dying right in front of you, and you think that's okay. So I personally think also when the politicians get involved, I'm curious to see which politicians are going to respond and what they're going to say. I haven't heard anything from Joe Biden. And the reason we haven't heard much from Joe Biden, in my opinion, is because Biden is a tough on crime kind of guy. Also, the lady that he's talking about making his VP candidate, Amy Klobuchar, who's in Minnesota, she made a statement. She did mention the fact that he was African American. She did all this. She tried to hit all the right notes. But if you look back at Amy Klobuchar's record, she was criticized extensively for not just being tough on crime, but for not prosecuting cops. Right? So when you're talking about fundamental change, the necessary fundamental change required to address an overwhelming situation like this one, you have to ask yourself, are the right people even in place to even address this on a fundamental level? I say that the answer is no. And I think that if you don't get systematic change, then you're just sitting around basically waiting as sitting ducks, waiting for the next person to be slaughtered and executed. So that's it. That's all I want to share with you guys. God bless George Floyd and his family. Thank you guys for listening. Please hit the thumbs up button. Type your B1 hashtag B1 in the chat, and also don't forget. We need an economic base in our community. That's important for our activism. Politics and activism cannot move forward without an economic base. So that's part of my job, is to show you that. So we're doing for free a Black Stock Market Challenge, where I'm challenging you and training you on how to get started in the stock market. It starts on June 1st. You can join for free at theblackstockmarketchallenge.com. THE. That's theblackstockmarketchallenge.com. Somebody type that in the chat so everybody can see it. So I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day. Thank you for listening. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV.